Editor of Autocar India joins us. And almost on a normal day, on any given day, I will always start with cars, cars, and cars. But looking at what Eicher has launched yesterday, which was followed up by a very smart launch from Harley Davidson, I want to start with two-wheelers for a change. I mean, we are getting some rather interesting and some innovative launches from the two-wheeler company suddenly.
Yeah, I think let's take Eicher, with the Enfield, the Thunderbird, they've gone to the X series. Basically, these bikes are now targeting more of the urban market because Enfield's typically more for the outdoors type, but they're basically cosmetic upgrades. So I think the clever bit what Eicher does or Enfield does is that they really enhance the value of the bike or the perceived value without putting too much cost into it. So that's why the margins are really great on that. So it's really the same technology. There's nothing new. In fact, they're behind in technology compared to some of their rivals, but they just make the bike so much more aspirational. And in this case, they're adding alloy wheels. They haven't done alloys for a long time. They've got a new seat, new paint schemes, and overall giving a little bit of more sophistication to what was is perceived as a very rugged bike. So I think they're looking at a different target, a set of different customers right now, more targeted at the urban markets.
Almost, but do you think in terms of an aspiration and also in terms of penetration, Royal Enfield could struggle now? Competition has intensified. The sales have been very strong, and there is a threshold to which some of these so-called lifestyle bikes could grow. I mean, they are part of a fad, and these fad cycles are not permanent.
Yeah, I know conventional wisdom says that, and we've always expected, the sales to plateau out. But, I think over here, they're not selling a bike, they're selling a dream. And more people are dreaming, even in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So I don't really seeing it plateauing out. And frankly, there's no real competition for Enfield at this price point. Bajaj have tried with the Dominar. The sales of the Dominar have plateaued, though Bajaj has done exceedingly well as the numbers show, but it's mainly their Avenger range which has really clicked, and now recently they've done, upgraded the Discover. So I think clearly as far as Enfield goes, they really don't have too much competition, and it'll be a while before someone gets into that space at that price point. And it's got such a cult following, and those things are very long lasting and go beyond rational reasons to buy a product, whether it's price, technology, value for money, fuel consumption, that sort of thing. So I think Enfield is on a very good wicket, and it's really one of the huge marketing successes ever.
But Hormazd, just sticking by with the Enfield point, will they be able to crack the European markets, which is their intention, because that's the mega expansion that they've talked about? You've also got the promoters now shifting their base out of the country as well. Will they be able to crack markets like Spain with Royal Enfield?
Well, I think, internationally, they are starting from a very small base, so obviously there's huge scope for growth, and they will. But will they be able to crack it? I mean, it depends on what that term means. I mean, they will be able to sell in large numbers, but I don't think they'll be able. I don't doubt they'll dominate any segment of the market, even the one the way they do in India over here. I don't think that's going to happen because in Europe, customers are more discerning as far as technology and quality goes and overall reliability. And that's not the case with Enfield vis-a-vis the other big international brands. So it'll be tough on that. Again, they'll be using the same kind of nostalgia, retro appeal and charm of their bikes over there. But that market is much smaller, and people can afford bigger and better bikes over there as well. So they will grow for sure, but I don't think they'll dominate. I don't see them dominating at all in the near future. That's internationally.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you're making, the focus and thrust and quality internationally as opposed to in India. Let's talk about some of the new product launches then, and let's cover the two-wheeler space first, and then we'll get back to passenger vehicles. You've got Bajaj Discover and TVS Nork or Torque. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this one. What's the feedback been?
Ntorq.
Ntorq, okay.
Yeah, Ntorq. Yeah, it's a new. Yeah. I think TVS yeah, TVS has been pretty strong on scooters, and it's a bike we've reviewed. We've reviewed it on the Autocar show as well on this channel. I mean, it is a pretty good bike. It kind of ticks all the boxes, typical TVS way. It's a very good package in terms of refinement, the way it handles, efficiency, all that sort of thing. So I think with scooters, TVS is always on a good wicket, and I think a product like the Ntorq will add to the numbers in good measure.
But in terms of the four-wheeler and the new launches, how do you think 2018 will be dramatically different than 2017? I mean, my personal observation is that suddenly every company is trying to eye the SUV market. So is the SUV market the go-to market now, and should one look out for that space in terms of some booming launches and innovation?
Absolutely. I think, SUVs is the go-to market, not just in India, but globally. It's a global trend. Everyone is moving to SUVs. And from a manufacturer's point of view, it makes absolute sense to, increase their SUV portfolio. And in India, for several reasons. I mean, number one, SUV, there's a huge appeal on it. So there's a natural demand for it. SUVs have good margins typically. Their perceived value is much more than what they cost to the manufacturer. So you have a much fatter margin on it. Again, that's a good reason. And a third reason is that you're not treading on Maruti's toes, which is really the mass hatchback segment. So everyone wants to stay away from that. But having said that, now Maruti wants to jump into the SUV space, which we saw their intent at the Auto Expo, where they showed a very small compact SUV. So they don't want to miss out on that action. But I think SUVs, everyone is doing SUVs. If you look at Kia, they're launching with a very SUV heavy portfolio. They're starting with a Creta size SUV, then they'll do a sub 4 meter SUV, then they might do some CKD SUVs, but it's all SUV, SUV, SUV. And I think if you look at what Volkswagen and Skoda are going to do when they kind of reboot their operations in India, it will again be an SUV first. So I think this SUV first strategy for a lot of the new players, whether it's SAIC with MG or Kia, that's I think what everyone's looking at. But it's going to become a very crowded space because everyone's thinking along the same lines. So I think that's what we need to look at, how it all pans out.
And the sedan car market, do you think will be still dominated by the Desires and largely by Maruti, or you see some disruption happening there, maybe from the Hyundai or some other player?
Well, I think there will be the traditional players. You have Honda, which is very, very strong with their City and Amaze. Honda has kind of positioned itself as a sedan car player in some ways. So I think that's definitely going to continue. You've got Maruti with the Ciaz and the Desire, so they are again very, very dominant over there. And Hyundai is there as well, and now you've got Toyota coming in with the Yaris, so that's also going to be interesting. And but I don't see new players jumping into the sedan space at all because it's very difficult for that. So
Hormazd, in terms of the aggregate demand, now the aggregate demand, Hormozd, is also a function of affordability and also a function of how much are you able to shell out in terms of the EMIs. Last couple of years we've seen that interest rates have come down. 2011-12, if you wanted to buy a car, the average rate you were paying was about 11.5 to 12%. Currently the rate is 8.5%. But if interest rates move higher, that could move to 9.5 to 10%. Do you think there is a direct correlation in interest cost and auto demand?
Oh, absolutely. There definitely is. In fact, I think, since I don't know the number, but a huge majority of cars are bought on finance. So I think clearly it will certainly have an impact. But I think there are other factors as well. I think, there are new model launches. Of course, the economy is growing at a rapid rate. And I think, this love for cars in India is still very, very strong. We don't see that petering out as yet. A lot of still a lot of first-time car buyers, waiting at that threshold to get their first set of wheels. And I think the minute the conditions are right, economically, other factors, even this whole instability there was with all GST, which kind of made the prices seesaw, especially in the luxury car segment. I think once that stabilizes and we have a clear blue sky ahead, I think growth is going to be sustained for quite a while.
What's happening with Tata Motors, Hormazd? Because, I know we've been talking about Tata Motors for a while. These new launches, this year, the Tiago, Nexon, etc., Hexa. Have they really been able to take off? Because, just personal observation, you don't see as many of these cars on the roads, not in Mumbai and not in Delhi. So, it's going to be a long time before they can even try and match up to Maruti.
No, I think for anyone, well, firstly, I think for anyone trying to match up with Maruti, I just don't see that happening in the foreseeable future. I think everyone's just given up on trying to compete with them and are trying to, avoid treading on their toes directly and getting into their core segments. But coming back to Tata Motors, I think they have reached a turning point, to be honest. I think some of their cars now, you are seeing a lot of visibility. Nexon, you are seeing a lot on the roads. The Tiago is now very well established. Hexa 2 is doing well. So I think their new products which were developed over the last 3-4 years, I think the companies it's now bearing fruit because numbers are increasing. They've got a good range of products, much better than what they've had. In fact, I don't think in Tata Motors history they've ever had this lineup of products before. And I think you will see their numbers consistently grow. The only worry is that, beyond 2019, they have just one product. Then after that, the next wave of products, that's still not completely signed off. But we saw their intent at the Auto Expo, so there's a lot on the anvil. I think Tata Motors' problem is getting it out fast enough and with consistent quality. But again, they've really closed the gap over there. So, while it's still tough times for Tata Motors that way, but I think I'd be very optimistic purely because products have improved, their sales numbers have improved. I think what the company really needs to work on is the margin and the profitability, because the brand doesn't allow them to premium price their products as yet. But once they build confidence in the brand, they can slowly start taking up the prices, which will certainly impact their bottom line. Because right now all their products have a big value for money tag. They need to literally buy market share. They can't command it like a Toyota, Honda, or even Maruti would. But I think they're slowly getting there, and they just need to chip away at it. And I'm optimistic.
Maruti's sales numbers are out, and it's been a little sub the ET Now estimates. We were expecting the February sales of about 1.53 lakh units. At 1.49, this is not going to be a huge disappointment for Maruti. But yes, this is sub the ET Now estimates in any case. Maruti has cooled off somewhat from where it started off in trade, but at 88.92, it's still on its way to retest that 10,000 mark, so to speak. So, Hormazd, if you had to bet on that one stock, or rather one company, and I'm not going to allow you to take Maruti's names, what is that the go-to story which you think can become a Maruti, or at least try and become a Maruti in the next 1 to 2 years from now?
Well, I think a lot of the auto companies that are listed here, so the ones which could potentially challenge them. I mean, a Kia is one potential because they're starting from zero, and they are so aggressive. In fact, they're 2 months ahead of schedule in terms of their plant. They're moving with lightning speed and with a real commitment, like a Korean tiger. But there's no, it's not a listed company here. But I think Eicher is something I would continue to bet on, because as I said, it's going to be very hard for anyone to really give them serious competition. Bajaj tried to do it head on with a Dominar. It didn't work. Not because the Bajaj product isn't good. In fact, it's much better in many respects. But the whole point is, as I said, you're selling a concept, you're selling a dream, you're not selling a product. So it's really the emotional side. As long as that remains, with bike buyers, and I think they will. I think Enfield is a stock Eicher is a stock I would bet on.
Well, not bad. And Aisher has corrected quite significantly as well from a top. So just maybe a good entry point as well there. Hormazd, great speaking with you. Thanks so much for analyzing the trends across the board, be it two-wheelers and, of course, the passenger vehicles as well. Good to gather in all that info on the subject.